I'll never forget the time that I reached into my inbox and pulled out a form with big red letters across it. Denied without payment. At the time, I was a teacher at a charter high school in San Francisco. Following a routine eye exam, I needed to schedule a scary follow-up appointment with a specialized institute to assess whether or not I was at risk of going blind. The catch was that the latest appointment I could book was at 1 p.m., meaning I was going to have to miss some school. I thought through this hard. How could I take care of my health and at the same time make sure that my students wouldn't be left behind? Yes, there was always the option of calling in sick and getting a sub, but everybody knows that sub equals no work. Plus, a sub equals more money spent, which my underfunded school could ill afford. So the best plan I deduced would be to make the appointment on a Wednesday afternoon. This was the day that our students were dismissed early to allow for professional development time. Appointment set, I submitted the requisite form requesting time off, a formality or so I thought, and then didn't think much of it. Fast forward 1 month later, I got the notice in my box. I was puzzled and thought surely this must be some kind of mistake, and surely after explaining, the principal, my boss, would change his mind. So we scheduled a time, and after I sat down, I provided the full story. He gazed back at me with feigned compassion. Yes, I can see how that would be frustrating. And then he paused. However, professional development is even more important than classroom time. I just can't have you missing that time. So I stand by my decision. Well, I countered with, so let me get this straight. What if I had just pretended to be sick, called in the morning of to get a last minute sub? Would I then have received payment? Yes, he blankly responded. I followed the thread further. You mean if I had lied, I would not have been denied payment? He nodded. That's correct. No surprise, I didn't return at the end of the year. I left my boss, not my job, and Gallup estimates that 75% of employees who voluntarily leave their jobs do the same. But it's more than that. At that moment, I needed my boss to have my back, and he didn't. If you're a boss, I can guarantee that your team members need you to have their back more than ever. A recent Boston University School of Public Health study revealed that rates of depression in America have tripled since the onset of the pandemic. And while engagement rates went up to record highs at the start of the pandemic, they are now at record lows, according to a recent Gallup study. As a manager, what can you do to help your team to navigate this challenging time? Do, speak, and create. So do prioritize your own self-care. Speak. Engage in conversation about well-being with your team members. And then create. With thoughtful rituals, systems, processes, and activities, you can create the conditions that promote better health and well-being, even if your team is now virtually connected. It may sound like an overstatement, but maybe, just maybe, managers really are our last hope. At a minimum, a manager that is invested in well-being can make a big difference for the people they lead. I know that it sure would have made a difference for me.